Hey Karen, we are streaming, so just heads up for everybody. When you're ready to start, we're ready to start.
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Out of all the hand sanitizer machines I've tried today, one works.
Are they absolute?
I don't know. It's either batteries or soap or something.
Yeah, I always truck to check those
I don't know who's supposed to do it. Custodian?
Yeah, we usually, I'll pass them out.
Test. The one? Oh, that one is a 0 now? Okay. I will mark that down. According to my iPad, we have 1 more minute, so I just don't want to start early in case people are joining right at the last minute. Be fair to them.
I'd like to point out that I'm not running up.
I know, Connie, good job.
No, maybe I'm changing my ways.
Never too late.
With meetings left. That new tricks thing.
Oh, you know what? I have not yet. Maybe at the end. Maybe at the end. Okay, let's do that. All right. According to my clock on my iPad, it is now 7 p.m. Today is Tuesday, November 10th, 2020. Welcome to the few here in our presence and hopefully many more listening in online. Let's start by indicating who is here. Todd.
Todd Zenger.
Terry Bodden.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn. Nicole McDermott.
Connie Anderson.
The superintendent is here with us online virtually.
I'm here.
Yep. And Karen Winder, board chair. So welcome. With all the COVID numbers spiking, we decided to not invite our regular people here tonight. Hopefully they're listening in, so we're going to skip introductions, but we will still have our pledge led by John Welburn.
Will the audience please arise? Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda, we'll have a reverence by the Skyline High Madrigals. Ben, I'm assuming you are in charge of that.
Yeah, as you can see, we have a video here that was shared with us. They're doing a series of these videos featuring some of their musical numbers, and we appreciate them sharing this one with us.
Very. And if you'll make sure to convey our gratitude for that wonderful reverence, the song, the message, and just the good overall feel for the great job they did. If you'll do that for me, for us, from our board. I don't think we have any mayors here for mayor participation. I don't see Mayor Overson from Taylorsville. She's a frequent flyer. Also, we don't have anybody signed up for citizen participation time. So that being said, we will head straight on into our consent agenda. Board members, you've had this since Thursday, I believe, to go through and review. And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as it's written.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or concerns? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Sorry, Terry, I thought you were going to ask a question there for a minute. I didn't want to jump the gun. Okay. All right, so with that, we will move directly into our first information item. This next item always seems to garner a lot of discussion and a lot of opinions from a lot of different angles, perspectives, and different sides. And it is calendar options. Now, it's kind of crazy. We're at the end of 2020, and this calendar option, I want to make sure people note, is actually for the 2022-2023 school year. And so with that, we're going to have Tina West and Garrett Muse come and, oh, not Garrett. Sorry,
It's Craig.
Craig, you changed. You don't look like Garrett.
I get to be Garrett tonight in
Okay,
a couple of different
awesome.
pieces.
Sounds, there you go. There you go. So they're gonna lead us through this presentation about the calendars.
Thank you, Board of Education and Superintendency. We are here tonight to present to you the survey results for the 2022-23 calendar, along with a couple of calendar options that was prepared by the calendar committee. My name is Craig Stauffer. As mentioned, I'm a secondary school improvement director, and then our chair of the committee is Tina West, who will be presenting as well. And then Ben, and then Ben, of course, was part of the committee as well. Before we talk about the actual survey, we want you to know that we took last year's survey and shared that with our research and development department. They made some suggestions that we reduce the questions to 2 major questions, asking about long summer and short breaks versus a longer summer and more break, or a shorter summer and more breaks. And so that allowed for the committee to better come up with options. They also asked the surveyors to prioritize what they would like, which also helped that committee make their decision. The survey, if you'd go to the next slide, Ben. The survey was available in both English and Spanish. The survey was emailed to all parents, staff, and students on September 22nd, along with on the district website, and then communicated through schools. The link was resent with a reminder to parents on September 28th. The very first part of the survey was to give parameters and considerations for input. This helped guide the committee as far as developing the calendar and coming up with options, but those parameters were 179 school days, 1,000 instructional hours, holiday dates cannot be changed, 3 end of year days are needed, or end of term days are needed for grading. Fridays or the last day of the school week is a planning day and early dismissal for elementary students. Teachers have contract days before school begins, as well as 3 during the school year. The Friday following conferences are going to be a compensatory day. A legislative instructional exemption day must be included in the calendar. An emergency closure day must be included in the calendar, which is scheduled later on in the year. Primary instructional time before testing is a priority. And then we strive to maintain a minimum of 3-day school week, Thanksgiving being that exception. And then efforts were made to connect days off to other holidays or put a day in April or May when there aren't any other holidays. And then we attempt to keep the number of days in each quarter close for instructional time. The very first question then was, I have read the calendar criteria outlined above. You can see that the majority of them did answer yes. We appreciate their honesty. There was 82 who chose not to read those. The next 3 questions were recommended by the board to give us some extra data. Question number 2, which of the following best describes your connection to Granite School District? You can see that the majority of those who were surveyed, over 4,000, were parents or guardians of students. We did have the next group would be employees over 1,500, and then we did have 1,118 students who participated in the survey as well. So that was great results. Sorry. Question number 3, how many students in your household take advanced placement classes? This was not defined. We allowed parents to make that decision on whether their students was taking advanced placement classes, but you can see the vast majority have 1 student who takes an advanced placement class. 0 was the second highest result, and then 2 had just over 1,000, all the way up to 4 students in the family. 92 responded they had 4 or more students in the family. Question number 4, the high school network. This allowed us for a little bit of disaggregation. You can notice that the 2 highest networks were Olympus and Skyline, followed by Taylorsville and those that potentially work for the district office. And then the majority of the other networks were very close to 700 students. I'm going to turn the time over to Tina.
Okay, so question 5, we asked them to remember the calendar criteria that was previously listed and that we need 179 school days and 1,000 hours of instruction. And these were our 2 questions that we asked. When we met with research and development, they said that our previous survey was a no-win situation in that they wanted to have everything that they wanted and that was not possible by the time we meet the criteria. So the 2 questions were, I prefer to have longer breaks during the school year and a shorter summer, and this means school may start earlier in August to go into June. A fall recess will be scheduled. Thanksgiving break may be 3 days. Winter break may be a full 2 weeks, depending when Christmas occurs, and spring break will be longer. That one versus I prefer to have shorter breaks during the school year and a longer summer. This means school may start later in August and end by Memorial Day. There may not be a fall recess. Thanksgiving break may not include the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Winter break and spring break may be shorter. And you can tell by the input that was given, almost 57% said that they prefer to have longer breaks during the school year and a shorter summer. Then we thought it would be interesting to you to see how the different groups did give their input. So you can see that all of the groups liked the longer break and shorter summer, but some are closer than others. The parent group was fairly close. The student group, look at the employee group data. It is extreme that they want a shorter summer and longer breaks. And also the parent employee group. And then question 5, choices by network. And we thought it would be interesting to look at how the different networks solicited or gave their input, And so the ones that struck attention for me were Cypress, which actually has shorter breaks and a longer summer. And then Skyline has a big difference with really wanting longer breaks and a shorter summer. The others, I didn't find it was fairly close between those. And then question 6, if you look at that, this is the weighted average. And this is our 3rd year doing a weighted average. For the 2020-2021 calendar and the 2021-2022 calendar, the weighted average was the same, although the amount varies, they were in the right order. This weighted average changes things in that a long winter break was still the highest, and then a long spring break was next, but then it changes to a 3-day Thanksgiving where it used to be end by Memorial Day. So then end by Memorial Day would be the 4th on the weighted average, followed by start later in August. And then of course we put fall recess on this one because as you know, our calendar does not have a fall recess this year. So based on that, thank you, Craig. The calendar committee came up with these 2 options, and our committee consists of all of the same people. Everybody that has a say in this, we try to represent different age levels, different places in the valley, transportation. Our association joins us, PTA joins us. This year we had everybody say that they wanted to come, but we did have our counselor not come this year, unfortunately, but she had said she would be there. So if you look at draft A, would you like me to point out the differences to these? Tell me how you would like me to go through these, and I'm happy to do that. Okay, so let's just look at draft A. Draft A starts early in August, and the teachers come back to work 5 days in a row. Students start then on August 15th. We have conferences the week of the 19th through the 23rd of September. We do have a fall break on October 20th and 21st. I'd like to say that September 2nd is a teacher contract day. So that's a day where students are not present, but it is a work day for teachers. So we'll have some professional development and some instructional prep time. Then if you look at October 14th, that's the T/teacher contract day. That's an end of term day. And that is also where teachers are in some professional development, and then they have a half a day to work on grades. November, Again, there's a teacher contract day, and we do have the Wednesday off before Thanksgiving. Both calendars have that. That's where we've chosen to use the legislative exemption day. This calendar has winter break for the families starting on December 23rd. That, however, is an end of term day. And that's a request by the committee. Many people have wanted second term to end before winter break. If we do that, and you look at the number of days on each term at the bottom, that makes third term very long. But the conversations that we had were third term is prime instruction time, and so that seemed okay to the committee based on the feedback. Other things to notice, it does have a long spring break, a full week. Both calendars do based on the feedback that we received. It does end by Memorial Day, and there is the emergency closure day on the 26th. I think the rest is self-explanatory. Okay, compare that to draft B, and we tried to find enough differences because we all know what happens when we send out one calendar. Those are really hard comments to read because you only get the ones that they don't like. This one, the calendar committee really liked that teachers could return to work for 2 days, have a weekend, and then come back for 3 days. The same with students returning to school. You'll notice that students come to school on a Thursday, and many people on the calendar committee were in favor of that. Same thing for the conferences in September. Fall break is a week earlier. Same 3-day Thanksgiving. Winter break has 2 extra days on it with a teacher contract day on the 22nd, so families would actually be off on that day. We made sure that conferences were not on Valentine's Day. You know that many of our teachers have not liked that. That's on both calendars the same. Spring break is not attached to Easter on this calendar, but it is on draft A. It is a week. And for families, it actually is an extra day, except for the emergency closure. And we really toyed with that day on March 31st, where to put it. It was actually moved a couple of times and then landed back there. And I have some reservations about that, whether students would come. Hopefully we won't need it. So, and then this calendar does go past Memorial Day. It goes through June 2nd. The terms are closer in number because the second term ends after winter break by 2 weeks. What we're asking the board is if we can go forward with these 2 calendar drafts, submit them online in January to get some input. And what we would like to do is additionally is present the results next to it and then bring back some results to you in February in hopes of adopting one of these calendars for 2022-2023. What questions or comments do you have?
You have taken the most controversial job in the whole wide world and put it into good perspective. Thank you. Both, you know, I can see where both calendars would make sense.
I liked comparing both calendars, though I really like B for a couple of reasons. I think it's so difficult for teachers to have to teach all the way till the 22nd and have Christmas on Sunday. So I liked that extra time that teachers got to then. I liked where spring break was a little bit earlier for teachers and everyone to prepare for the tests. But I have never minded going over Memorial Day either, so I like.
Chris, did you have a comment?
I just had a question. So that emergency closure day on that Friday on draft B, so they would be on spring break and have to come back on a Friday if we had to use that, just that Friday?
Correct.
Yes, and the calendar talked about that for a long time, and that's where it landed back with the entire discussion.
So, because traditionally, we've kind of put it at the end of the school year. And tell me why that was not a popular opinion for the draft B. So like doing it on June 2nd instead, or?
Yeah, I believe we were trying to find enough differences when we put them out there for people to give input.
Well, one of the things it would do is if you were to take that day and make it a day off, part of spring break on the 31st, then we would need to include that to the next week, not on the 2nd, because you have the 140 or 79 days.
I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
I would just point out too that COVID has done a lot of damage, but it also has killed snow days. So we have put this emergency closure day because that's what we do. But in the future, I don't know how much of that will be necessary because we do have distance learning options that we haven't had available to us in the past.
All right, well, oh, Nicole, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted you all to get it all out before I. I'm not sure. I love draft A because of the imbalance between the first semester and second semester. If you have semester classes, that's 9 days difference. That's almost 2 weeks instructional time difference between the two. And to me, first quarter is hardest because that is when you have to do all your policy and procedure in class. You have to get the kids back in. You have to kind of review of what happened. If there's anything that we err on, I would rather see those at the front of the semester and the first of the year. I'm just putting that out there. Is there a reason why they were okay with that? Why the committee was okay with that?
There, a lot of suggestions came from secondary schools where some of that taking concurrent and AP classes. And it was suggested that I think that they would be able to hopefully be able to cover that curriculum quicker in order to be able to end so that now those kids do not have to worry about final exams and things after Christmas. So that they felt like that was something that would be a good option for students, parents, and teachers.
I know, it seems like we got a lot of feedback from AP people. That's pretty heavily, people are involved in AP for who answered, but for everybody else, when you're teaching a semester class and you have that big of an imbalance, it's really tough, especially when that comes at the beginning of the year. Again, because you have to go through policy and procedure the first week, you have to go through school policy procedure, you have to go through all of that stuff. And that you're already losing some instructional time to me the first semester versus the second semester. So
I want you to know, I think that conversation has taken place not just with this year's committee, but also last year's. To Craig's point, we've heard a lot in the data itself indicating, especially with the mental health aspect of giving kids a genuine break over the holidays. So we did want to try and provide that as an option. Again, obviously, the purpose of presenting these two calendars is to then present them to the community starting in January and then get feedback on those calendars just to see if there is broader concerns either with what you're indicating, which almost certainly will be the case, but also with respect to the mental health component of ending that break during winter break, if that makes sense.
Sure. And I agree. I like seeing that break happen before winter break, but that's just so imbalanced to me. But that's my 2 cents worth. The other concern that I have, just as I look, especially it seems like this happens a lot, a little bit more often in draft B, is that there's an awful lot of Fridays, and when Fridays are taken away from junior highs, that's their PLC day. And I'm just wondering if we can, instead of sticking all of those, especially the TCD days, if we could put those on a Tuesday instead of on a Friday, or just balance that out a little bit more in order to alleviate some of that for the secondary teachers and allow them to have those PLC days. Because if we are saying those are valuable, then we need to be giving them that time. You've got 4 of them, 3 of them, I guess 3 of them looking at the two calendars, both of them, I noticed that we do that a lot, is put them on Fridays. And I understand that we're trying to put them on, and I like how you guys have done that with putting them on with, grouping them with the other holidays. That's just my concern, that we hit Friday an awful lot. And for junior high teachers, I think that's a tough thing when we're trying to do PLCs. So those are my concerns, but I do appreciate your guys' work. I know this is hard, and I love, like I say, I think we've learned a lot, and we've come up with some good ideas here. So I appreciate what you guys have done.
Okay, thanks board members for your input on that. Now, to be clear, what we're doing tonight is just putting it out there, and this committee, this is also one of those where there's not the perfect calendar that's going to make everybody in the entire district happy. And so please send back our thanks. We know that the calendar is hard to grapple with. There's a lot of requirements, and so a lot of requirements allow for very little flexibility sometimes. And so we appreciate that. Just a reminder, this will go, so basically we're just giving our nod tonight. And then in January, this will be posted for specific input regarding these two specific calendars. Ben's communication department will lead that, I believe, and Tina, your committee's involved as well. And then we'll get that information back. And usually the final action for the calendar takes place in the February board meeting. So do I have that timeline right? Correct. Just to remind all those that are listening in where do we go from here? We've seen the options, what's next? So wait for that communication to come out in January so we can get even more input specific to these two options. And thanks again. The calendar is one that gets a little tricky. So we appreciate the work. Thank you. Okay, next we will go on to our first action item, which is a first reading regarding fee schedules. And I believe, let's see, who's doing it? Oh,
It's going to be Garrett virtually, but I will be here just in case we have technology.
So Garrett is
difficulties.
online. Hi, Garrett.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Loud and clear.
I am sorry that I can't be there in person, but I'm happy to be with you. Welcome. Welcome to the board and to the superintendency. I have the opportunity to present to you our first reading of the 21-22 school year district fee schedules changes, as well as the schedule of non-waivable charges and fines. As you recall, it seems like we just met together about 7 months ago, which is it was pretty straightforward because we did meet for our final time, and we spent some very busy months for each of the schools preparing spend plans and getting fee schedules ready for this school year. So we met just a short time ago. So there really aren't a lot of changes this year, but I'd like to show you just a few changes that we have come up with as a fee committee. So on the next slide, you see the three schedules that are presented. You'll notice that there are basically very few changes on any of the schedules, but on all three of the schedules, high school, junior high, and elementary, we made changes in the wording at the top of the pages and at the bottom of the pages. The reason we had to make changes in this regard is that the fee committee felt like for us to comply with the new fee law, the district fee schedules that give the maximums charged, we also felt like needed to address the spend plans of what types of things the money will be spent on the fees that are authorized by the board. So let's review what we wrote. At the top of each page, it talks about the fee amounts and the spend plans. It says all the fees listed on this schedule are maximum. I apologize for that spelling error. It will be corrected next week. Unless you want me to read it, the maximum amounts approved by the Board of Education that a school may charge per pupil for participation in the named activity, class, group, or team. Then it goes into the types of expenditures funded with school fees, student fees include ancillary personal costs, educational costs, employee training, professional services, etc. And we've kind of listed all of the types of fees in that big 50,000 perspective view that will be covered. Obviously at the school level, they're buying whistles. So some of those things under student supplies might be pencils, but at the district level, at your level, it is covered in activity and student supplies. Then it goes on and explains that the planned expenditures will vary by program and school due to the unique needs of the specific plans made at each school. And then it also gives the parents the information of where to go and find each school's published online fee at schoolfees.graniteschools.org. And it says parents are encouraged to refer to their school's fee schedule for detailed fee and spend plan information. So that's kind of the new wording that we put on all three schedules. At the bottom of each page, we listed the schedule of non-waivable charges. And we took some of the things that were not charges off the fee schedule. We felt like we needed to explain that. So we wrote, the board authorizes fines for damage caused to district property and for violating rules of conduct. Because administrative penalties do not implicate participation in school-sponsored activities, these fines appear with other non-waivable charges on the board-approved schedule of non-waivable charges rather than on this fee schedule. So those are the two changes that you'll find on all three schedules. Now, to go to the specific high school schedule. As you look at this high school schedule a little closer, we'll delve into it. Only the areas that are in color are changed, and there are only about 4 areas that we are requesting to change. Let's go into the first area. The first area is not a new fee, it's a request to increase the visual art maximum. The reason being is because what we found a request was that painting, a particular class, advanced painting, especially painting with oils, and in contacting a number of schools, the cost for the particular tubes of paint were more expensive when you added in as well the canvases, the cost of the canvases, the cost of the palettes, the cost of the brushes, and those paints together increased that fee by a little more than $10, but we felt like we would just raise it by $10. The second area down below, it is in green because this would be considered a new fee, even though it is far from new. What we felt like as a fee committee, kids have been paying for concurrent and AP textbooks, but we have not had them on the schedule. And we felt like that was an area that we have missed on, and we needed to add that in, even though the kids may have to pay for that themselves. It is a thing that the kids are charged, and so we need to put them on. You may ask, why $115? We talked to James Taylor, who is over the concurrent program in our district. He said the most expensive book that he's aware of that kids would be required to pay would be $115. By the way, as far as he knows, nobody pays $115 because the books that are that expensive, usually the school will break that into payments by the book themselves and then hope that the college will keep that book for 3 years and let the kids rent the book rather than purchase it for the $115. That's kind of how we work it. Most of the principals at the secondary high school level, if the book's very expensive at all, we try to buy it and then rent it to the kids to get the payment out of it rather than have a kid pay $115 for a book like they do in college. So that is a request for that particular fee so we can continue to charge the concurrent and textbook fees if a school does. The next section is on the co-curricular extracurricular section. Up above, you may have remembered from last year, we had this college readiness program up in the class fees. What we realized is that this fee is more of a co-curricular fee because the class also includes a club. And so they're more akin to the JRLTC, which you find about 4 below that. And we needed to give them the opportunity not just to have a fee that they may charge for the class, but they also needed to be able to fundraise for the activities that they do. And so we pulled them down and said, you're going to have to be able to run your class and all of your fundraising up to, can be the maximum now of $60. Below that is the music performing groups. The junior high school music performing groups has $150, but the high school only had $60. So now what we've done is made the high school group about the same as the junior high, meaning the 150. And that goes in because we found that the high schools, a number of the schools are involved in competitions that cost $70 to $75 a performer that they need to be able to fundraise for and charge some fees for. They also are buying clothing that is not a tuxedo or dress. For example, maybe ties or performance sweatshirts or different things, and they can't fundraise or buy much more than music with the $60 that they have for that fee. So we made it the same as the junior high and raised that up to $150. Those are all the items that we made, that we're requesting changes for on the high school level. On the junior high level, we only made one change, as you can see on the next slide, which is just mirroring the same thing we did with the high school. We moved the college readiness course again to be more like a class with a club attached to it so that they can do fundraising, and we allow them to fundraise, charge a fee and fundraise of up to $60 per year. With the elementary, which is the next slide, we made no changes to their fee schedule other than the wording at the top and the bottom. So this time I will move to the non-waivable charges and fines. From what you approved last year, we made no changes except for one area, which you can move to the next slide will show us. We added a course replacement processing charge. What this is we allow in our district, because the state requires it, that we allow students to be able to take a class over in order to improve their grade. This is not a required thing, and if the students have already taken the class, they may not even need the class. And so it is a general purchase. It is not a requirement for the student. And if a student chooses to do that, we're requesting a charge for that, which will cover the review of application, the registering the students, the adding fees into Blue Bear, the reviewing the completed transaction, the making the grade changes, so forth, as well as just taking the class over again. And so that's a request that we've had from that program to add a processing fee. Those are all of the changes that we are requesting for both the district fee schedule and the non-waivable charges and fines. Do you have any questions for me?
This is Nicole. Hi, of course.
Hello.
It's me. On the junior high fee schedule, you have credit recovery for 9th grade. Aren't all of our 9th graders by next year going to be in the high schools?
I believe that's true.
So does that mean
I'm trying to think about if there are any classes that they would need credit recovery for that courses may give high school credit while in junior high.
There is the potential of world language classes that would be credit bearing. So most of the time that would not be an option, but because there are some credit bearing classes, we probably need to provide that.
So instead of saying credit recovery for 9th grade, we probably just need to change that wording to say credit recovery for.
Yes, that would be true.
For credit bearing classes, for high school credit bearing, or yes, for graduation credit bearing classes.
All right.
Yeah, I thank you for pointing that out. We'll make that change.
Any other questions, board members? Once again, thanks for, we did have long discussions. It seems like forever ago in some ways we were discussing fees, but 7 months ago kind of does feel like a lifetime ago in a lot of ways. So thanks for putting this together, and hopefully this provides a much more transparent, true numbers is kind of, what you see is what you get type of deal with fees. And I know that's the overall goal, is to have a cap number that's an actual cap and not bendable, with other things coming here and there. And so thanks for putting that together. Thank you, Garrett, for joining us and leading us through that tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
Okay, onward and upward. Our next item, if I can find my place. Oh, first reading. Yeah, we actually need to have the official business on this. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, so any other questions regarding fee schedules? All right. Oh, yes, and Rick reminds me, this has been out in the public for comment, for review, and so transparency is key. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for the first reading.
I move that we accept as a first reading the 2021-2022 elementary, junior high, and senior high student fee schedule as presented, with that change that was indicated.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of the fee schedule for all secondary and elementary schools with the changes noted. Any other questions, concerns from board members? No? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right, now we'll have Doug Larson come on up. We have another first reading, the second item, which is another first reading. Dude, I'm having a hard time speaking tonight. Okay, so this is a new policy for electronic devices and acceptable use of technology. And Doug, I believe this is actually required by the state.
It is.
And that is why we are looking at this policy.
Right. So the state actually did, based on some legislation a couple of years ago from one of our own legislators, the state has passed R277, or has updated, R277495. Our policy, our old policy, is old enough that it actually included beepers in the description of various electronic devices. So it definitely needed to be updated. It is now updated. This policy attempts to promote the use of technology. That's the one thing that we wanted to make sure that we balanced in this policy, that it wasn't a policy about all the do's and don'ts only with your cell phones, but that we actually promoted the use of technology in our classrooms. And we hope that we were able to strike that balance. You've all had an opportunity to read the policy, and I'll just answer any questions if you've got them. Oh, I will note one more thing. On the very last page, on page 5, that's the old policy that has been stricken. And so we did incorporate that into the new policy, but we basically wrote it as a brand new policy and just struck the old policy altogether.
As I read the policy, one thing that struck me is actually exactly what you already said. There's a lot of times where I think phones are a distraction, right? We want the kids to put those phones in their pockets and pay attention to the teacher and answer their questions, participate in class, those things. But I think what struck me here in this policy was there's also a great opportunity to use technology for good, to engage students if they can look things up on their phone, or I know from my own kids' experience, sometimes they'll come home and say, yeah, we did this activity. And, if somebody doesn't have a phone, that's worked out, of course, in classrooms. So I was impressed with actually it kind of balanced, hey, we need to be careful, but also there's some potential good in having kids with the internet in their pockets, So, any other comments, or did you notice anything else? Anything stick out at you, board members? Questions?
I might just make one more comment. So you'll notice that there is an attachment to the policy, and that attachment will likely be updated from time to time, and that is our terms and conditions for computer use in our schools. I do have copies of those if you're interested in seeing them. I think most of you have actually signed them, but those are the terms and conditions. Well, hopefully all of you signed them now that I say that. But I do have copies of those if you'd like to see them, and we'll keep an updated copy of those attached to the policy as it gets updated every so often.
Okay, without any further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept this first reading of the, whatever it's called.
Electronic devices and acceptable use of technology.
Yes.
That.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as the first reading the electronic devices and acceptable use of technology. Any further questions or concerns? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously as the first reading. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
All right, I believe Martin is online and has a couple of things that he wanted to address. Specifically, we've asked him to address, there's been some concern surrounding when a high school goes into dismissal, what that process looks like, how quickly we move through that process to notify an entire high school population that occurs. And then also if he's going to address this, there's been a lot of talk around the governor's mandates and how that affects schools. and also the UEA request that's gone up to the state. So if, Martin, we're going to turn the time over to you to address those two things, plus anything else you see fit. So go
Thank
ahead.
you. So for my report, and thank you for that opportunity. There have been a number of questions because we've worked very hard to be transparent with our dashboard. And what happens is the dashboard will go above 15 in a particular school, and then people will say, well, why isn't the school dismissed immediately? The fact is, the dashboard is a live document that is populated from lots of different sources, from health departments and the district and doctors' offices and administrators. And so an 18 on the dashboard doesn't necessarily mean 18. And so what happens, if those of you who remember Kmart's and the blue light specials, when the number hits 15 or above, it's like an alarm goes off, and the health department has people that are dedicated then, and we do as well, to work together and they're looking for a number of things. They're looking, for example, for duplicates, because if the same name's been entered from different entities, that clearly shouldn't count multiple times. Similarly, or by the same token rather, if a student is attached to a school but has never actually been in face-to-face instruction, but all the instruction has been by distance, then that student shouldn't count against the 15 either. And so when the alarm goes off, so to speak, the people get together, they sort through those names, and then if it truly is meeting that 15 threshold, the trigger, if you will, is a letter from the health department to me. It's addressed to me. And so we are absolutely following the health department recommendations as soon as we receive those. And we receive those sometimes a period of time after the number appears to have gone over the 15 threshold. But please understand, and board members, I have been forwarding to you generally the letters from the health department, and they are pretty specific. We recommend dismissal beginning on thus and such a date and running through thus and such a date. And so we've been very careful to follow those recommendations as they're given to us. Now, by that same token, or really to the same topic, we are aware of the UEA correspondence to the governor. I've certainly read that through. I know my staff has read that through. We've talked about that. We know and we respect and we value the UEA, but we intend to continue to look to the state and, frankly, more specifically to our local health department for their epidemiological expertise and their recommendations. And so while we are working to keep schools as safe as we can, we look to them for their health and epidemiological recommendations rather than trying to insert other thinking. That's where the expertise resides, and not with my staff. I think those are those two areas, Karen. If I can answer questions to those, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, specifically, I think a lot of board members, when Taylorsville High was placed on dismissal, I don't know how many days ago, weeks ago, I don't remember, but there was some concern. But I think it's helpful for families to understand that even though during the day that number, was over 15, that's when our health department was frantically trying to take care of duplicates and make sure there's no distance learners that didn't have access to any of those kids. And so the actual recommendation came into us after hours, which a lot of these do. I mean, COVID doesn't quit on evenings, weekends, and holidays. And so our departments are constantly, our nurses, everybody's, pretty much working overtime to ensure that those notices are going out. But I think specific to the Taylorsville confusion, it was that even though the rumor was out there that 15 were shutting down today, we didn't get notice until that evening and then had to allow to go back to school to get your things for the 2-week break. So I think hopefully the board members, does that clear up kind of what happened as far as, because a couple of you had reached out to me to understand that better. So thanks for addressing that, Martin.
Can you just address also, sorry, can you just speak to, or maybe Ben can, but the 15, I think there's some people that are under the impression that that is a number that we chose, that we have this 15 and we just picked it out of the air. Can you address where they got that and why they said 15 or 3 per class?
No, 15 and 3 per class is the number that the health departments, the 13 regional health departments and the state health department determined that number. That is their number and their recommendation comes from them. 15 for a school or 3 for a class. Now Ben has said a number of times, particularly we had conversations early on about 15 seemed to be a small percentage of a large school. And yet with the contact tracing that's involved in a secondary school, when 15 kids move between 7 or 8, or for that matter 10 periods, the people that they're in contact with and then the people that they're around, really by the time 15 kids are positive, more than half of the school has been impacted in terms of quarantines and cautions. And so 15 seems to be in our observation now that we've watched it, they've identified the right number. That's where the number 15 comes from, Nicole.
Could I just point out and emphasize with respect to what the superintendent just said, that 15 is relative to a group of people, no matter the size of the group. And I think a lot of people think, well, if it's a larger group, we should have a larger number. But as the superintendent pointed out, when you do have 15 confirmed cases, you're looking at really more cases that are asymptomatic or low symptom individuals walking around in that environment. And so when we have gotten up to 15 cases, as he's indicated, by that time, roughly 40% of the population within that school has probably received an info letter, meaning they were not exposed, but they might have been in class with somebody who was quarantined or who was a carrier of the virus. And so you can see that that would have a much larger impact on a smaller school than it does on a larger one. But either way, we feel very comfortable with that number right now.
All right, other questions? Thanks, Martin.
That's my report. Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we can move to board reports, starting with Connie.
I just would like to say that Connie and I and Nicole and I, and sometimes Connie and Nicole and I, have visited some schools that I may not normally visit, just trying to get in as many. And I just have to say what a great experience it's been to visit with principals, to talk to them about challenges, to see what they're doing as far as their how they're trying to manage COVID at their school. Many of our junior highs have arrows, and it's just you can only go down this hall and you can only come down this hall. And to me, I think that our principals are communicating things that are working, things that are not working. I would also like to acknowledge the thank yous that we have got from our employees for the surprise bonuses. And we had the opportunity to visit Benyon Elementary, and Nicole will bring those to our next board meeting. But we live in the world where it is just nice to get a thank you. And to any of those who have written notes or, express that. It was very kind, and personally, I appreciated it. And I don't want to steal Chris's thunder, and I'm going to let her talk about it, but we did receive a letter about the Utah Association of School Psychologists, and during the week of November 13th or 9th to the 13th, throughout the United States, we're celebrating National School Psychology Week. I'm not going to say anything other than those of you out there that are doing that job are doing our schools, our teachers, and our children a huge service by what you do. And I know we don't say thank you as much. That's all I'll say. Chris, you got to say something too. Other than that, I think that's it.
All right, Nicole.
I too appreciate the people who have reached out and said thank you. It was fun. I got to visit with Connie Vista Elementary, Benyon Elementary, and I got to see Westlake Junior High, and it was really fun to see them, and amazing to talk to the principal there. And he told us about some of the things, the positive things that have come out of COVID. And he said, these are some things that we're going to keep even after. We have discovered, the one-way hallways, how well they work, the check-in. They have a little app that they check in the kids when they come into class, which just automatically takes their attendance. Some amazing things that they have come up with, and they're brilliant. Backpacks, they said, we kind of like this no locker. It's cut down on our tardies. So some positive things that they have found that work, and the way that they have made an elementary school work for a junior high is really, really incredible. And if anybody hasn't visited, it's really amazing out there.
It almost fits. Thank you, Tyler.
So yeah, and I do want to. I want to give a shout out to our administrators. October was School Administrators Month. Is that how you say it? Anyway, School Administrators Month. And I know this is a big, as much as teachers, we appreciate teachers and what they're doing, and recognize that they are doing an awful lot. I know our administrators are too. I know I walk into school sometimes and I hear the administrator, I'm on the phone with the district again, or the health department. I'm doing contact tracing. I'm doing, I know that their job is huge this year too. And so I just want to thank our administration and the hard work that they are doing. I think this is an incredible year, and they have a tough job. They're trying to fill subs, and they're trying to, make sure that they're quarantining the right kids, and just everything that's going on with them. So thank you so much for all the hard work that you guys are doing. I hope you got recognized at your schools, but if you didn't, then let me know and I'll bring you a cookie. I'll bring you a crumble. Yes, I'll bring you a crumble cookie. I do want to give a shout out also to the PTA and their involvement. I think I've seen some really creative PTA getting kids involved and getting people involved, even though it's virtual and a lot of it has to be at home. I know we did the Red Ribbon Week a couple weeks ago for a lot of them, the PTA, and how they helped do some of the Halloween stuff, and just, virtually helped the teachers and helped from home. I do want to make sure everybody's aware that PTA has put out a thing for Thankful Thursdays. They want to be able to have kids recognize and be thankful for certain people for the next 6 weeks. But this week is thankful for teachers. So if you get a chance, tell a teacher thank you. And I do just want to end by saying I recognize, and I feel bad that if people feel like they're not being heard, because we do hear. But what Karen said was really important. What Martin said was really important. We have made a commitment, and I hope people recognize that too, that our commitment has been, we will follow what the health department has said. We trust that they are the health experts. We are not health experts. This is not a, well, I think you should do this and I think you should do this. Everybody has a different opinion on it. And we have committed as a district and as a board, we said, we will follow what the health experts say, and have drawn a hard line. And talking to some people elsewhere, and they have to make a decision every time this comes up, and they have to have emergency meetings and everything. And I really am grateful that we have drawn that hard line and said, we are going to do this. We will follow the health department, period. And the health department has said they've had the opportunity, and Dr. Dunn has even backed this up, that we are still okay right now. But we are committed to follow those guidelines. And I appreciate everybody here that is willing to also make sure that we follow those guidelines, but point that out, that we are not the ones making that decision. We are standing by what our health experts are saying. And I appreciate the district and their hard work in following that and keeping track of that. So thanks.
All right, Chris.
So just to echo a little bit of what Connie started, it's National Psychologist Week. And I think sometimes we underestimate what they're doing in our schools. I don't think it's not something you see every day like a teacher. And so I just want to make sure that we are, thanking them for their hard work. And I think their scope of their job this year is so different than probably ever before. Students that they've never, and families that they've never really had to, support, they're now supporting in a different way. And they have a theme that's the power of possibility. And I really like that theme that they've chose, because it does show that there is a lot of possibilities out there. Even there's silver linings with COVID that, it doesn't feel like that all the time, but you've got to look for those and keep that attitude that this will go away someday. It's just not right now. So we need to look for the good. And then I think our school psychologists do, they have an incredibly hard job to make sure that our students are staying mentally healthy. And that's a really big deal. And also our teachers, that's our whole staff. We need to really be careful that we're making sure we're doing best by them. I also want to just touch on tomorrow's Veterans Day. And I know we have a lot of veterans in our school district. We have teachers, we have custodians, we have district employees who have served our country. And I just wanted to publicly thank them, because we do have quite a few that work in our district. I also just want to end with that. Right now, I think with the holidays coming, it's going to look different for our students and our families. And I just hope we can support that difference, that they might not have those same experiences they normally have on their Christmases and Thanksgivings, or however they celebrate the holidays. But let's just be aware of the needs of our students right now and support them the best we can.
Thank you, Chris. Connie.
I don't have much other than thanks for all of the work that administrators and teachers and those that work within the schools are doing. We understand that it is a difficult time, but so appreciative of the efforts that are going forth and all the work that is being done. Our students need to be in school, and how grateful I am for those that are there in the schools to help them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Connie. Terry.
Yeah, just in conjunction with our school psychologists and its National School Psychology Awareness, I talked to Ben because I want to make sure we recognize them. There will be a superintendent snapshot that goes out, just so we're all aware, recognizing those school psychologists, and we certainly appreciate them and all that they do. Also, I continue to volunteer and having a great time. I passed out milk today at Redwood Elementary, and those kids were so cute. And 90% plus always said thank you. And they're great kids. Our teachers, our staff, our secretaries, they're the face of the school. They're just doing amazing things. And they're all very good. I did have one teacher who was upset at us when we had decided as a board to go back. But she came up to me last week and said, I want you to know, Mr. Bodden, and please pass this on. I feel safer here at school than I do anywhere else in the world. And so I think that's a great compliment to all of our workers and our superintendency and all of you for creating as safe of an atmosphere as possible. Thank you for what you've done.
Thanks, Terry. Todd.
I have a couple of comments, and I'd like to make a proposal. But first, I do want to thank all the teachers who are on the front lines. They're doing amazing jobs, and some of them who are maybe more sensitive than others due to health reasons or, maybe some mental health concerns. Some of them have real concerns, and I have received numerous emails over the last days. It's still with a lot of teachers and parents expressing a lot of concern as to the direction that we're taking. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's doing such an outstanding job. But I also want to be a voice for maybe considering something maybe going forward. I know there's some recommendations out there, for example, from the UEA, that everyone just go to online schooling, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I think there are some things that we could consider, and I applaud the district's willingness to follow the health experts. And I think we get criticized sometimes for closing schools down when we're following the health guidelines, and yet there are others who still raise the question of why we don't do more. And I believe that we can do more and that we could be a little more cautious, because there are a couple of things that I think going into this winter season and with COVID raging even more and more that we ought to consider. Today on the CDC website, it said that for schools that the recommendation is to modify classroom layouts and to space seating and desks at least 2 meters apart when feasible. And I believe that is feasible, and they have suggested some ways, and the CDC suggests that we consider modifying school schedules. And they have 2 recommendations. One, expanding the timetable. Schedule some students to attend classes in the morning, others in the afternoon, and others in the evening. Or they say expanding the school week. Schedule some students to attend classes on certain days, whether that's Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday, or they even suggested having a 6-day school week, which I'm not suggesting. But I believe that there are things that we can feasibly do to help our students and to help our teachers and to help our staff and help the administrators even safer. So while I'm not saying that we ignore what the state health experts say, I think we can do more. I think we can be more cautious, and I think it would be wise for us. For example, today, 67% of our high school students are disrupted from in-person class to out of person. And I know some of the schools are going in and out over the next few days, but when 67% of our high school students are being disrupted in their in-person, the switching back and forth is unhealthy for the students and for the teachers and for everybody else. And in fact, 100% of our high school students have experienced this, going to school and then not going to school and then going back to school. And 2 of the schools have experienced it twice. So we've had nearly 23,000 of our students, of our high school students' schedules disrupted by having to go in and out of school in person versus online, when if we maybe expanded the work week or did some type of a hybrid situation, we could have everybody being consistently educated. I know personally of students in my precinct who have already missed 6 weeks of school this year because of some type of quarantine or some issue. So they've been out more than half of the school year already, and then they go back for 2 weeks, then they're out for 2 weeks, then they go back, then they're out for 4 weeks, and then they finally go back, and then they get booted out again. So I think it's really unhealthy for our students to be having to transition in and out. And I would propose that instead of having a study session in 2 weeks, that we have a board meeting and that we discuss whether it would be wise to consider going to some type of a hybrid schedule between the new year and between Thanksgiving and the New Year's, so that each student at least has some consistent time with their teachers, because right now that's not the case. And I would rather see everybody have consistent time, some consistent time with their students, than it being on again, off again, on again, off again, because the mental toll, I think, is more than we really appreciate. So my proposal and my motion would be that our study session in the next 2 weeks, we take up the topic of considering the CDC's guidelines of modifying our school schedules.
Okay, so let me understand, Todd. So you're basically saying, now just to be clear, today is November 10th. Our study session is in 1 week. which is November 17th,
Excuse me, yes.
because 2 weeks from today is Thanksgiving. And so the 17th is our study session. We actually have quite a full agenda already that evening with our long-range capital plan. Now, Todd, so he brings up a good point. So a proposal, basically, we can't do it in this meeting because of something called an open meeting law. The agenda has to be finalized 24 hours before the meeting. And so I think if I'm hearing you correctly, Todd, is a request to have a future discussion on this. Now,
Yes, on November 17th.
correct. So this does not have to be debated in open meeting. We can take care of this later, but let me just kind of, if I can chime in a couple of points. First of all, we have other districts that have tried the hybrid model and they've seen in their data that it doesn't slow down COVID any more than in-person and distance. That would be Davis District. They've actually abandoned that. I think going into this, when we had many, many debates, we knew that there's not one perfect plan, right? Todd, you mentioned kids coming in and out of school. My son goes to Granger High. He was ecstatic to get to go back to school after dismissal. And what's interesting to hear is there's now positive peer pressure being placed on fellow friends to not go to those kinds of parties. I heard, so it's, the high schoolers are starting to own their education. Speaking of good things coming out of COVID, they recognize it's a privilege to be going to school during COVID. So many kids are not going to school in the COVID. And I understand, Todd, your comment of how many thousands of kids are out at different times in high school. And we can dwell on that. You can also flip that on the opposite side and say we still have 50,000 plus kids in person learning, and that's what their parents have chosen for them. So there's a lot of debate around here. I don't know if
I'm not suggesting that consideration be for the elementary schools and the junior highs. I'm suggesting that consideration be for the high schools.
For high schools only. So let me tell you legal, just kind of in procedure and policy, what has to happen is a few board members need to be willing to back this up to put it on the agenda. Because this is something we've previously voted on within a calendar year, it has to be a supermajority vote to revisit this discussion and contemplate a different schedule for, even if it is just for the high school model. So board members, the biggest thing right now is we've been told by our county and state officials, it's not spreading in school. The school is a safe environment. Kids are wearing their masks. Kids are sanitizing. Kids are actually doing, I mean, the teacher comment actually kind of plays right into that. They feel the safest at school when all the protocols are going on. You've seen the reports. The social gatherings where the masks are off, it's family reunions, it's family dinners, it's friend birthday parties, it's showers, it's weddings, it's those kinds of things where homecoming parties, it's all those things. And so I think that's something else we have to consider is, you know, that capacity too. But I guess where I can leave it, Todd, is what we can do is over the next week before next Monday, you know, see what kind of support we have to bring that back as an agenda item.
Here's the reason for my request. I am not suggesting that the transmission rate is anything higher than the health experts say it is, but it doesn't matter where the transmission is occurring. What matters is the impact that it's having on our students. Because if in the last 2 months, we have over 23,000 of our students being impacted by a quarantine or something else, it doesn't matter where the transmission is coming from. The fact is it's impacting our schools. And I think that we can do better by avoiding all of those quarantines, avoiding the definitions of an exposure. If we keep people 6 feet apart, they can't have an exposure. We wouldn't have had 23,000 high school students out of class for all this time if we practiced the CDC's recommended social distancing. So I'm not arguing against the science. I'm saying it doesn't matter where the transmission occurs. It's impacting our students, their mental health, and it's stressing out our teachers and a lot of people and parents. And I think that we can follow the health guidelines, but that we can add some additional caution to that. And under these extraordinary circumstances, I think that would be wise.
Sorry, can I just?
Go ahead.
I appreciate what you're saying, Todd, and I know I totally get it, guys. I totally get it. I'm exhausted. I had 2/3 of my class gone today. I get it. But at the same time, I know that there's also the other side of that where these kids, this means a lot to them. And that when you talk about their mental health, you're talking also about some of the things that they live for. The musical that has to be postponed now because of a 2-week delay, but they are looking forward to that and they are so excited. And the teacher who cried because she couldn't do it because they were delayed. The concerts, all of these things, these are the things that the kids are excited about, and that's why they go to school. And you're taking that away from, you're suggesting that you're saying, well, let's postpone it, but that's fine. But then they have other things that are planned, and so things get bumped off the list and things get lost. And it's heartbreaking for kids, and it's heartbreaking for teachers who put their life and soul into this.
And none of these things would happen. None would happen if we did social distancing
outside of school.
We
because
wouldn't.
That's where the transmission is happening, outside of school.
It's outside of school, not inside.
But we wouldn't have any quarantines if we did social distancing. By the state's own guidelines, we wouldn't have a single quarantine.
I'm going to kind of cut off this discussion right now because we're starting to get down to where we are discussing an agenda item that is not listed on the agenda. So I'm going to need to cut off the comment right now. This can continue with enough support to be put on a future agenda. So I'm not here to, be Debbie Downer and say it never can happen, but we do need to wrap it up because of that open meeting law. I don't want to get into an open debate on something that's not listed up for debate on our agenda this evening. So Todd, if you'll do me a favor, kind of reach out to board members, keep me in tune with that for November 17th. I will appreciate that. As for my personal board report, it's been really interesting. I've continued to visit schools. I went out to Gorley, and what kind of really, I know our teachers are working hard, and I hope they sure know that we do appreciate them and we know how hard they are working and how that there are challenges. I mean, COVID comes, it's going to bring challenges no matter how hard we work, no matter how hard we try. This might not be the year that you have the perfect teaching year, or the students have a perfect learning year. It's hard to expect to put that expectation that high on a year where there's so much up in the air and we're trying to just survive day by day, sometimes hour by hour, as I can see Michelle nodding her head out there. And so, but as I visited, what's really kind of warmed to my heart, above and beyond seeing the awesome work that our teachers are doing, is these administrators, when I meet with them, they walk me through the challenges and then they proceed to follow those challenges up with what solutions they've come up with or continue to come up with. I mean, this changes day by day. I've talked to several principals on a Saturday because they're doing contact tracing, or they've had to make sure that their phone, that if they go somewhere on Sunday, that they're in cell coverage because they have to be on call 24/7 to make this work. And so I just want to know, we understand it's not optimal. We are all going to have our same opinions on our own opinions that differ on what may be best to handle this, and that's okay. But I am very proud of our board, for sticking to our promise to the teachers to follow all the health recommendations from our county and state health departments. I applaud you. There are other surrounding areas that aren't doing this. They're having a lot of meetings of their own choice, and we're choosing not to because we don't need meetings to debate a choice that we've already made. There's no reason for us to look back on that promise and not stick to it. So I hope that gives our employees, continues to give them some hope that, hey, if the day comes that the state or county health department comes and tells us one thing, we're ready to jump on that because we've developed, especially with our county, we have developed a wonderful, direct relationship where we can speak the truth to each other. I have a privilege of every Tuesday morning being on a county health call with Gary Edwards and his team, the other superintendents and board chairs. it's a very open, honest discussion, sometimes of frustrations and questions, and obviously shared best practices come into it as well. You know, hey, what are you guys doing? How are you handling this? Those discussions, those relationships are key to keeping us going forward. And so I just wanted to give a shout out not only to our own board, but to those partners that are so critical to keep these, you know, keep kids in school learning, growing, even under some really trying circumstances. Back to my visit to Gorley, I was impressed. You know, she took the data from first quarter, crunched it, the principal. They made a few tweaks in how they did their teaching, dual versus single modality. She changed up a few things, met with each individual team. They chose their path, made a few tweaks, and she says second quarter is a lot better. And isn't this what it's about? I mean, we take what we know, we try to push as much local control as we can, and then let them run with the solutions that work best for their community and their school. So that just really stuck out to me as I've made a couple of recent visits to, you know, I don't know, it just really, it just warmed my heart that people are coming up with solutions, and just everyone's doing the best they can. And it's not a perfect world. It's not going to be a perfect world until COVID, you know, isn't part of our discussion anymore. So with that, oh, Connie.
Carrie Montoya sent us a little thing about PTA. If I want to join PTA.
It's online now, Connie. You might have to pay by credit card.
I'm not, if it's online,
I can send you the QR code.
There's yes, and Carrie Montoya, you know, I love her emails. Thank you, Carrie, for sending those to us.
Sign me up.
Yeah, Nicole can help you. Yeah, she did sign that up, encouraging, and you can click and easily donate to and be a PTA member.
I think it's, for those of you who have not already joined PTA, and I mean, I'm not going to get my whole year worth out of it, but it's still a good message to send from the school board that we value PTA and we're willing to put down that little teeny bit of money that it would cost to be a member.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, motion to adjourn plus a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.